Thanks for stopping in and stopping by to see the Dash AP Robot overview for SYSPRO. This is the culmination of a lot of effort and a lot of conversations with customers who are asking for more and more automation, and we're here to help them. Our customers ask that we help them tackle key workflows like accounts payable that are repetitive, prone to error, and just take way too long. Why? Well, time is an issue. It's one commodity that you can never recover once it's passed, and it's a critical component to the competitiveness of every business today. We live in a fast food drive-through world and everyone wants it now, so we all need to keep up. Labor is another issue. Even in the best of times, good help is hard to find, and that's especially true right now. It's harder than ever to find good people, and it's getting more expensive every day. Accuracy is a perennial issue that most companies battle. We've all heard since we were kids that a job worth doing is worth doing right, and we know doing something right the first time saves a ton of time and money in things like rework and fixing mistakes. Those things can be very costly. These are all great reasons to focus on improving this business process. So how would you do that? Well, you try to reduce the people time involved in the business process to the extent possible. You would simplify the mechanics to make mistakes less likely to happen in the first place. In simplifying all of that, you'd make training easier so you can bring new people on and bring people up to speed much quicker and much easier. You try to catch and correct errors as early in the process as possible because they get more and more costly as it gets further and further down the road. And that reduced time can help capture discounts, saving a company lots of money over time as well. So what do you use to make all these things happen? Well, try using the Dash AP Robot for accounts payable automation. So what's it like when you're using the Dash AP Robot? Well, let's talk a little bit about that process. Imagine you get 100 invoices from your suppliers and they come in paper or they come in email, and what you need to do is get those things into a PDF format. One PDF per invoice with a maximum of one purchase order associated with that invoice. Just simply drop those 100 invoices into a watch folder on your PC or on your network somewhere, and the AP Robot picks up, starting an artificial intelligence-driven process to extract the data from those documents. And we validate that information against SYSPRO to make sure that the information on the invoice matches the information on the purchase order, which matches the information on your receipts. That classic three-way match gets done. And if everything aligns properly, the AP Robot simply posts the invoice into SYSPRO, so you don't have to do any of the data entry at all. And if you're also a Dash DDX document management user, it will save a copy of those invoices into your DDX archive file, so your filing effort has just been eliminated as well. We've dropped those 100 invoices in here, but out of any given batch of invoices, there are going to be some exceptions. There are variances where things don't match invoice versus receipt or invoice versus PO and so on and so forth. So those things need to be identified and those problems need to be segregated so that some person can review them, correct them, and move them along their way. So the AP Robot does just that. It identifies those exceptions and it gives the user an ability to zero in on them very quickly, correct them, and then with one more click of a button, post them directly to accounts payable and to DDX. Now there's some cool things going on in the background here that are worth noting. One, there's no pre-training involved. I mean, you may have 500 or 1,000 different suppliers, each with different formats in their invoice, and in some softwares you'd have to train the software to recognize each one of those formats. Not necessary here with the AP Robot. That AI-driven machine learning process behind them that's responsible for extracting the data is learning from thousands and thousands of invoices all the time and getting better and better as time goes on. So you don't have to pre-train anything. It knows how to pull that information out of those invoices for many, if not most of them. This system can work with DDX document management software or as a standalone. So you could start with the AP Robot and use that for a while. And if you decide at some point along the way you want to use DDX as well, great. Buy it, install it, set it up, get ready to go. And then there's only 2 more settings you need to change in the AP Robot in order to have your invoices start to be automatically filed away. The system performs that full 3-way match for you, all in an automated fashion. grabbing the appropriate purchase order, grabbing the appropriate receipts wherever it can, and matching them up to that invoice so that you don't have to fish and hunt for them. It can also handle invoices for non-PO related suppliers. Just set up your supplier appropriately. This is a supplier that doesn't have purchase orders, and these things can be processed automatically along with those PO related invoices. Now the upside is that when everything works perfectly, there's really not much to demo or show you. However, in any given batch of invoices, whether it's 10 or 100 or several hundred, there are always going to be some exceptions that fall out. And you know this today from the way you deal with invoices where there are variances and other things that don't actually work smoothly. And there's a need for a person to review them and make corrections and then pass them along their way. And the AP robot makes that really simple to do. Before we get into some hands-on here, let me give you a brief tour of the screen for handling these exceptions so that you kind of know what's coming and you know what to look for. On the top left, we have a list of those invoices that are in some sort of an exception state. And when you click on one of them, you see that invoice displayed over at the right. That's the PDF display over there. Now that display is enhanced a little bit by the robot to draw your eye to things like the red box or the caution signal here, indicating that there are some issues that somebody needs to take a look at. That's part of what the robot does, is try to make it very simple and very direct for you to find the things you need to pay attention to. In the middle, at the top, you see the data that was extracted from both the header of the invoice and the footer, things like totals, the purchase order number, the invoice number, etc. All of that information is there. And again, there's some visual highlights like the invoice amount here that are lit up in a little bit different color, indicating there might be a problem with this that you should look at. Down in the lower left, more indicators focusing on the exceptions and the things that you should pay attention to. We want your eye drawn to this list of errors and warnings so that that's maybe one of the first things that you look at as you're trying to diagnose what's wrong with this particular invoice that causes it to bring it to my attention. If I click on one of those lines, it shifts the display of the invoice to show me the area where that information came from, if it's tied to an area on the invoice, so that, again, I keep everything nice, neat, and in sync. On the lower right, I see a list of all the receipts that are available for matching with this particular PO. Those are unmatched receipts, or GRNs. And on the left, I see the list of GL distributions where you can edit some of that information before you pass it along. Now let's get into the demo and show you what it looks like in the driver's seat. So I've run a number of invoices through the system already, a bunch of them posted all by themselves, and I didn't have to look at them at all, but I've got these three over here on the left that are hung up, and they're exceptions that, again, I need to look at and I need to resolve these. So let's dig in and we'll go take a peek at each one of them and see what the issue is. So I'm going to select this first one here, and my eye first goes down to the errors and warning sections down at the bottom to see what kind of problems arose when it tried to post this. And I see this error message getting the PO. It says a maximum of 6 characters is allowed for the purchase order number. Well, I know my system is set up to only allow 6 characters when I enter a PO, so I wonder how this came to be here. So if I click on this error number, I can see that up above it has surrounded in red the purchase order number, and I can see very clearly there's more than 6 characters in here. If I want to see where this came from, I can click in the field, and over at the right on the purchase order itself, it highlights the section of the PO where that data came from. And I can see that for whatever reason, this particular supplier added a -2, I'm guessing, to my purchase order number. I don't know why, but I can correct this with a couple keystrokes here, backspace, backspace. And when I click off of this, the robot comes back and gives me a little warning and says, you changed something really fundamental, the PO number. I want to go out and reevaluate this invoice again. Is that okay? And if I click OK, it's going to reach back out to SYSPRO live in real time, and it's going to see if that's a real purchase order. And in fact, it did find the PO. I can see this because it's found the supplier number, which it found on the PO. It found the terms and everything else that go along with it. And it even found the one receipt that matches my line item here on this particular invoice. So this invoice is all matched up and it's ready to go. And all I need to do at this point to complete the scenario is to click the post button. And it double checks everything one more time, and it sends it over to SYSPRO and enters it there as a posted invoice if all looks well. And then it removes it from my list. So that's all gone now. Now I've moved right on to the next invoice in the line, and I've got maybe what's a pretty typical scenario here. If I look down in my errors and warnings section again, I see that there's a problem with a line item where the quantity times the unit price doesn't really match the total that I'm looking for. So if I click here, I can look and I can see that, maybe the math didn't work out quite right here for whatever reason. And if I look down at the bottom here, I can see I've got 2 of my 3 line items or receipts are matched and ready to go, but I've got a third that is not. So I can probably fix this pretty easily by saying, okay, great, just like maybe I would in SYSPRO, I'm going to match this line item, but I want it to be a partial match, and I'm going to match this to 60240, the value that I see on the invoice here. I can double check this by looking at the GL distribution over here at the left, and I can see it's all being taken out of the GRN suspense account, which is good. There is no variance for me to worry about, so I can just let this thing fly and say post. Now, if there was a small variance there within the tolerances that you get to set, all that's okay as well. You could just look at it and say, the variance is fine, I want to post it anyways. But in this case, I've eliminated the variance, so one more time, I'm going to hit that one button to click. And with a few keystrokes, I've been able to correct all the problems on that invoice very, very quickly. Now, this is an interesting scenario here. I've got an invoice from a freight company, and in my company, I realized that I don't issue purchase orders for freight. And frankly, the first error here is about a purchase order being too long. And yeah, there is a purchase order in that area. So I'm going to click here to see where that came from. And what you'll notice is that the display of the invoice shifted. It's now actually looking at page 2, which is not the invoice itself. In fact, it's just some supporting documentation that got sent along, and it found a purchase order there, and it kind of figured, well, maybe that's the PO I should use. Well, the reality is, again, this is a freight supplier, and I don't issue POs to them, so I know this PO really doesn't belong here. So I'm going to get rid of it, backspace, and I'm going to go on to the supplier and select one of my suppliers from the list. I start typing their name. There they are, Old Freight, and everything looks good, except there's one more issue I might want to take a look at, and that's this invoice amount that's lit up in red. It is a little suspicious, so I'm going to click here, and when I do, it again shifts my display to show me where I got that information from over here at the right. And I can tell just by looking at it on page 1 of this invoice that, yep, that is the correct amount. I'm good to go. So I have to refresh my general ledger account, and it picked up the freight account from the supplier master record for Old Dominion Freight. And I do one more thing and say post it, and I'm all done. So with each of those invoices, I was able to resolve the problem with a few clicks and a very few keystrokes and get the thing done, far fewer than I would have had to do if I was doing the entire invoice manually. Now, the robot also keeps a brief history of invoices that it's posted, so I can see the invoices I have posted just by clicking on this posted tab. And there is the last 30 days. If I want a longer term history, that's what -DDX is for. -DDX, a separate product, is our document management system, and it can be applied to this business process, accounts payable, procurement, customer service, and all sorts of things. In the context of accounts payable, the AP robot can save these things away in DDX automatically as well for long-term storage. But if I were to look here, one of the invoices that we corrected, I can see all the data that I had put in as it was corrected and now as it was posted to SYSPRO. And you'll notice here, if I click on one of these invoices, you'll notice these hyperlinks here. These things tie back to -DDX if you're a DDX user, and they will launch DDX and find the documents related to this thing. So if I click on the purchase order, it'll grab the purchase order number. So I'm going to click, and it will launch the DDX viewer, and it will return a list of all those documents that have that purchase order on it. So in this case, here's the original purchase order that was captured as it was produced out of SYSPRO, and here's the invoice that was previously filed by the AP robot. Now, if we want to tie that all back to SYSPRO, we can do that as well. We can pop up the AP supplier query here, and I can look for my supplier, AJ Dukes. That's the supplier number that we were just looking at, and I can see that this invoice, -766, posted for this amount. Here's the PO reference that was set by the AP robot. It says PO number whatever by dash. That's your indication that it came through the AP robot, and now I've got everything tied there as well. Likewise, if I'm a DDX user, DDX can be hooked up to all sorts of hyperlinks within SYSPRO to perform similar feats. So here, if I select the link here and say, look up the supplier invoice in DDX, it will go out and perform a similar search, and it will pull back in our DDX viewer the invoice itself. All of this can be that simple. Correcting errors can be just a few keystrokes and clicks rather than entering the entire thing. You get improved accuracy because the artificial intelligence engine is reading the data directly from the invoices that you're feeding to it, and processing becomes much simpler and much faster as a result. So if you like what you see, you can enroll now. What's next? Well, here's how you get started. Go to our website, dev.com, AP Automation/SYSPRO, or just go to our website and search for AP Automation SYSPRO, and you'll find that same page. While you're on our website, you can read a little more about the AP robot, prerequisites and things like that. Always a good idea. But there's a form there where you can answer a few simple questions. Fill that form out and send it to us. We will then in turn send you a quick ROI analysis and a quote working with your SYSPRO sales rep to make sure you get what you need. If you like what you see still and everything works out, well then sign up, give us a call. We'll give you a free trial where you can use the AP robot on your site using your invoices and your data for a free 100 pages to see how it works for you. And notice that there's no long-term contract here. The AP robot is a service, so it is a month-to-month based on what you use service, and there's no need to pony up big dollars on the front end, and there's no need to feel like you're locked into any long-term contract at all. Prepare yourself for a little bit of implementation. How much? About an hour. We'll help you download the software, install it on one of your PCs, and show you how to set it up so that you can set it up for others if you wish. By the way, install it on as many PCs as you want. Then we'll give you a little training, and you're off and running. It's really pretty simple. If you like it, just keep using it. That's all there really is to it. So we encourage you to give the AP robot a try. Let's talk and see how the ROI works out for you. For most people, it works out very favorably. And we'll get you up and running and start saving you time as quickly as we possibly can. Thanks for watching today. We hope to hear from you soon.